Good morning, 8th grade. This is a video for you for Tuesday morning, the 31st of March. You are finishing your novel and you have some response questions that are due by Wednesday morning. So I want you to make sure that you're taking the time to give that some thoughtful response. This video is for grammar 4.2, which is transitive and intransitive verbs on page 60. This will be due on Thursday of this week. So if you look at page 60, we're going to talk about transitive verbs, and a transitive verb, as you probably remember, is a verb that has a direct object. Now, it says a transitive verb expresses an action that passes from a doer to a receiver. The receiver is the object, as we talked about just a moment ago. The receiver of the action is the direct object. To determine whether there is a direct object, ask whom or what after the verb. Now, that is a process that you should be very familiar with. We find the subject, we find the action, then we ask what or whom. If we have an answer, that gives us the direct object. So in this sample, the ancient Greeks created myths. Created is our verb. The Greeks is the subject. What did they do? Created what, whom? Myths. So it says the verb is creative, it's transitive, because the direct object is myths. Now, some transitive verbs are what we call a phrasal verb, and that is a combination of a main verb and a preposition or an adverb, such as clear out, nail down, nose out, root out, saddle up, and win over. So a phrasal verb is a main verb, and then it has part of a phrase after it. Usually it is a prepositional phrase. Now, although it may appear to be the object in a prepositional phrase, the noun or the pronoun that follows a phrasal verb is a direct object. In the following sentence, up this horse is not a prepositional phrase. Saddle up is a phrasal verb, and then this horse is actually its object. That basically means that when you have phrasal verbs and they end with words that they look like prepositions, like the word up in that example, saddle up is the whole verb phrase. It's a phrasal verb, and then what comes after that would likely be a direct object, like in that sentence, saddle up this horse. Horse is the object, the direct object. Now, an intransitive verb is the opposite. An intransitive verb does not have a receiver. It does not have a direct object. So in the sentence, a family of gods sat on Mount Olympus, family is the subject. What they do, they sat, but then on Mount Olympus is actually a prepositional phrase, so we don't have an object there. So it's an intransitive, it means not transitive verb. Can you tell whether the verb in this sentence is transitive or intransitive? How can you tell? Well, let's look at the sentence. The myths provided explanations of things in the world. Myths is the subject. What did they do? Provided what or whom? Explanations is what it says. So because it has a direct object, it's considered transitive, and explanations is the object. And you can check it by what it says here. The verb provided is transitive. Its direct object is explanations. Some verbs may be transitive or intransitive depending on their use in the sentence. And this is where it's really important that you pay very close attention to how the verbs are being used. For instance, Hercules fought a huge lion. Hercules is the subject. What did he do? He fought. Fought what or whom? Lion. Now that makes it transitive because lion is the direct object. But in the next sentence, the gods fought among themselves. Gods is the subject, and what do they do? They fought. Fought what or whom? We don't have an answer there. Among themselves is actually a prepositional phrase that we get rid of. So that is intransitive. Your assignment for 4.2 is exercise 1 only, where you identify the verb phrase, or the phrasal verb, and then tell whether the verb is transitive or intransitive. So for sentence 1, it says the Greek gods watched over human affairs. What is the verb or the verb phrase or the phrasal verb? In this sentence, it's watched over. And then you ask yourselves, okay, well, if that's our verb, the Greek gods is our subject. What did they do? They watched over what or whom? And the sentence says human affairs. So affairs would be the direct object. And in this case, your answer would be watched over. and transitive. So you're only doing exercise 1 for this assignment. Remember to give thoughtful ideas and time to your responses that are due on Wednesday for section 4, the last part of your novel. Blessings.